professional water ski tour, where all the gods and goddesses came to Okehili. I think it was 1985. Four.
You should say it on the shirt, right?
Rob Shirley kicked it off for all the gods and goddesses in the Okehili, and I got to see all the people I read about. I was got to ride the boat. Bobby Long was a driver. Anyway, going back to that time, that era in the 80s, that's where my first experience of meeting Jim and Thelma. And I was a young, I guess 32, 3 years old back then. And they were telling me, you're only around here one time, and when you get injured and you get busted up, you get fixed. And his favorite quote was, "We live for rehab." And I'm looking at these people like, what are they talking about? Well, as time goes on, I wasn't a very good water skier. I went on to the triathlon world and went on to the national and the world championships. But along the way, I got 2 new hips. And when I was getting the new hips, and I was starting my rehab, guess who came to my mind? Jim and Thelma told me, we live for rehab. And that was my first experience with the Salmases. But as I look around the room, it's touching to see all you people again. You've all touched me in some way through just water skiing and friendships, and as we were building the site up at Okehili, I mean, it was an incredible time. And you know, I think about it a lot, especially when I'm in my long distance training. You know, I try to get my mind off the pain and suffering, and it always comes back to water skiing. You know, 16, 17 seconds and you're done. Yeah, you're done. You know, last couple minutes, you're done. You know, I'm not here for hours and hours. I go, why can't I have been a water skier? But, you know, I look around the room, some classic people. Ed Brazil. I mean, the guys, look at him, I thought he was a Star Trek. You know, he was Deep Space Nine. I mean, stuff he used to come up with, and like, you know, and eventually it did happen. You know, I got, you know, Lee Gill. We used to be judges together. You know, he used to pull gates from the opposite end of the course. Man, Eagle-eyed Lee, you know. Let's see, I look around the room. I got, you know, the Kriegers, Charlotte, Joe, Uncle Dennis, Longo, Ruth, Christopher Point. I still have a photo. I don't have the photo. My son does. When he came into town for this first professional water ski tour, my son was, I think he was like 4 or 5 years old, just learning how to ski. Chris picked him up, held him up, got that picture of him, and here he is. This is 35 years later. Touching time. Cindy, the Benzels. I remember when Dave gave that lecture on you have all the tools you need to do what you really want to do and expand yourself. What was that lecture you called, wasn't it?
It must have been good that you remember.
And like, you know, expanding your mind and your potentials. I mean, that sunk in. I went on to different things. Now, Jeff Clark helped me learn how to judge. So it's nice to see everybody, and like I said, it's a nice celebration. I got Ruth and Stan. Donna, excuse me. Well, that's what happens when you get up over Medicare. Anyway, thank you for being here, and it's great to see everybody, and maybe we can have some drinks later on.